Welcome to Part D of Day 3, the second of two videos regarding Day 3 of the Chronology of Humanity, prepared by Father and Son team, George and Dana Brown. Quote, "Whoso keepeth the law is a wise son, but he that is a companion of riotous men shameth his father." Unquote. Proverbs 28, verse 7. Two nations. When Isaac was 60, Rebekah gave birth to two nations, one stronger than the other, and the elder Esau shall serve the younger Jacob, later renamed Israel. Genesis 25, verses 23 through 26. Now God blessed Isaac, and Isaac grew prosperously. Genesis 26, 2-5, verses 11, 14, and verse 24. The first nation. Jacob married two sisters and their handmaids, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Leah begat Jacob 6 sons and a daughter. Rachel begat Jacob 2 sons. Bilhah, a concubine, begat 2 sons. Genesis 35:22. Zilpah, apparently a concubine, begat 2 sons. Only 8 true sons of Israel. The true sons of Israel were 8 in number. Only Joseph, one of those 8, received the inheritance and special blessings. Again, the sons of the concubines belong to the concubines' original husbands. Now, counting Joseph's double portion, Manasseh and Ephraim, the true sons of Israel numbered only 9 sons and 1 daughter, so the children of Israel numbered 10. The second nation, Esau, Jacob's twin brother, was born red and hairy all over, and grew into a cunning hunter. Esau was called Edom, and was firstborn. Esau also begat 12 dukes of Edom. Esau is described in Genesis 25, verses 23 to 30. Esau's wives. Both Abraham and Isaac admonished their servants and sons not to take a Canaanitish woman, meaning a harlot, to wife. Genesis 24, verses 3 and 37, Genesis 26, verses 34 to 35, and Genesis 28, 1, verse 6. But Esau freely disobeyed. However, Esau, being the seed of Abraham and son of Isaac, grew very prosperously. In the third day, Abraham's seed, Ishmael, Isaac, Keturah's sons, all did quite well. Those in the inheritance sequence did even better. Joseph dreamed dreams. Therein he, Joseph, became the supreme ruler, and Jacob, Israel, asked, quote, "Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth?" Genesis 37, verse 10. Again, note, it shall I and thy mother, and thy mother. Double prophecy. But Joseph's mother, Rachel, died when Joseph was only a couple years old, at the most. Genesis 35, 16 to 19. Therefore, Joseph's dreams of Genesis 37, verses 5 to 10, obviously apply to both Joseph's literal reign in Egypt and unto these end days, now evolving in days 7 and 8. Thus, the blessings acquired by Joseph in Egypt are a preview of blessings now evolving. The reigning shepherd. Remember, Israel, a name entitled to be inherited by the firstfruits, means he shall rule as God. And the chief human shepherd was anointed in the spring of 1978 AD. Micah 7:15, Numbers 27 verses 16 and 17, and Isaiah 61 verses 1 to 3. You can also throw in Isaiah 49 1 to 6. Jacob's special blessings upon Joseph. Quote, "And that which shall befall you in the last days." This is prophecy now. That which shall befall you in the last days. Genesis 49:1 and verses 22 to 26. They obviously apply to the chief human shepherd and to the firstfruits, whose 42-year hour on 24 times 1,000-year day celebrates their glorious solemn assembly in 6022 from creation, or 2017 and 2018 AD, spring to spring. That's the year of the solemn assembly. Obedience has rewards. Moses' special blessings upon Joseph also refer to Ephraim and Manasseh. Deuteronomy 33, 1 to 5 and 13 to 17. Again, these blessings apply to the chief human shepherd and to the firstfruits. Wow. Moses' birth unto Sinai. We're going back a few years now. The end of 430 years, that is, 2537 from creation, from when the law was given Moses at Mount Sinai, back up 80 years to establish Moses' birth as 2457 from creation. That is, Moses dwelt 40 years in Pharaoh's household and 40 years in exile. And there are 88 more years from Joseph's death in 2369 from creation until Moses' birth in 2457 from creation. Exodus 1:1 through 19, verse 1. Okay, Arbor, Hebron, they're called Kiryat Arba also. Abram, age 99 and 2107. Now, Exodus 12:40-41 speaks of 430 years. Okay, we continue on to the end of 430 years now. Abraham, age 99 and 2107, and the laws given Moses at Mount Sinai in 2537 from creation. Okay, so we have 2537 as a key point here. We back up 80 years to Moses' birth. Aha! Now we go back to Joseph's birth in 2259. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph died in 2369 from creation. So that leaves 88 years between the two. So we're talking about 168 years now from when Joseph died until the law was given Moses at Mount Sinai. So Scripture says that the Israelites, dwelt in harmony in Egypt for about 48 years until Pharaoh came along, who didn't know Joseph. So then they were taken into bondage for 120 years. The bondage of Israel in Egypt. So we have 40 years until Moses died in 2577 from creation. Okay, Israel's exodus began from Egypt, 2537 from creation, until Moses died in 2577 from creation. It crossed the brook Zered. Black Israelites. In Midian, Moses became the progenitor of multitudes of black Israelites. Moses' years. Moses was born at the end of 2457 from creation. He spent 40 years in Pharaoh's household, and then from 2498 he began 40 years of exile in Midian, in the wilderness. And at the end of 2537 he was instructed to come back to Egypt and rescue the Israelites who were being held in bondage. And then he spent 40 years departing Egypt through 2577 when Moses died. And 2578 Joshua was in command, and they hadn't crossed over the Jordan at this stage. Thus Moses' years lasted 120 years, where his brother Aaron lived 123 years. Okay, Keturah, Abraham's concubine. She begat for Abraham 6 sons: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Now Jokshan had 2 sons, Sheba and Dedan. Dedan had 3, Leuman, Ashurim, and Letushim. Now the interesting one is Midian, Midianites. They had 5 sons, Epath, Epher, Enoch, Abida, and Eldah. That's Genesis 25, verses 1 to 4 and verse 6. Now Moses, a Levite, dwelt in the land of Midian during his 40-year exile from Egypt. Exodus 2, verses 15 to 22, and 3, verse 1. Now Moses, a Levite, married Zipporah, one of 7 daughters of Reuel, a priest of Midian. Exodus 2, verses 15 to 22 again, and 18, verses 2 to 4, and then Numbers 12, verse 1. Now Reuel, Moses' father-in-law, is also called Jethro, whereas Jethro is a title. Exodus 2, verse 18, and 3, verse 1, and 18, verse 1 to 2. Jethro, a title meaning His Excellence. We call it His Excellency. He's a ruler. Now Reuel, a name meaning friend of God. And Dual, which we find in Scripture, is a name meaning known of God. Dual, known of God, is a son of Gad, a son of Jacob's concubine, Zilpah, handmaid of Leah. So Gad's true father apparently is a Midianite. Numbers 1, verse 14, and 2, verse 14, and Numbers 7, verses 42 and 47. Reuel, friend of God, is also the name of an heir of Esau. Esau is an Edomite who was given the inheritance, or he was set up to receive the inheritance, but he gave it to Jacob, remember. Genesis 36, verses 4, 10, and 17. Zipporah bare Moses 2 sons in the land of Midian, Gershom and Eleazar. Exodus 2, verse 22, and 18, verses 2 to 4. And Moses married Zipporah, an Ethiopian woman. Numbers 12, verse 1. Abraham's seed, via Keturah, his concubine, begat Midian. Moses married Zipporah, a daughter of Reuel, a Midianite priest. Zipporah is described as an Ethiopian, a black lady. Therefore, the sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar, are the progenitors of multitudes of black folks. Therefore, after examining Scripture, the black folks should realize that they don't know who's who, but some of them are Israelites via Moses. Black people ought to be proud, because many black folks are indeed descendants of Moses, Jacob, Israel, and Abraham. Moses sojourned 40 years in Midian. So we have the 40 years of Moses in Pharaoh's household, 40 years in Midian, and 40 years with the Israelites on departure from Egypt. Now, 844 years after the flood was the year 2500 from creation. Very important. Joshua was born a year before that, in 2499 from creation. And later, at the end of the 40 years, Moses returned to Egypt in 2537 from creation. And then we have Joshua's reign of 32 years. And then Joshua died in 2609 from creation. And he was born in 2499 from creation. Now, the big question is, did Chinese history begin circa 2500 from creation, as Tang the Victorious founded the Shang dynasty? It's a good question. Early caravan routes by Phoenicians and later by Moses. The Silk Route is the prime route, as Moses may very well have gone to China and back. He made at least 2 trips, maybe down to India. Now, the Phoenicians, of course, were masters of trade, both over land and over water. Now, did Moses rule and rule 7 daughters visit China with other Midianites? So this 40 years is rather intriguing. When Moses sojourned 40 years in Midian, was Moses Tang the Victorious who founded China? Remember, Marco Polo visited China 2,795 years later. Moses sojourned 40 years amongst the Midianites. Now, if all the Midianites, or the majority, went with Moses, then Moses dwelt in Midian, even if traveling in China, India, or wherever. During the 40 years in the wilderness, upon departing Egypt, did Moses return to the Orient with the Israelites? 40 years is a long time to spend in the desert area that the religions tend to teach. So it's a good question. I don't think Moses is that dumb to live in the desert with nothing when he could explore a little bit of China. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, and after a brief sojourn in Egypt, he spent another 40 years in the wilderness. That's a total of 80 years. So that's ample time for Moses to make 2 trips to China and back. That's 80 years, a man's lifespan. So he probably made 2 trips to China. Some Israelites may have remained in China. Further evidence that Moses and other Israelites may have given seed to China during early visits are the blessings upon China. Again, some Israelites may have remained in the Orient. Also, other members of Abraham's seed obviously settled in China. Remember, God told Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. Nevertheless, China has been profusely blessed. Abraham's seed is to be countless as the dust of the earth. God instructed Moses to return from Midian to bring forth the Israelites out of Egypt. Exodus chapters 3 and 4. We're going back now to Abraham, age 99, 2107 from creation. And then it's 430 years until the law was given Moses at Mount Sinai, 2537. And the Israelite Exodus from Egypt began in 2537. And Moses spent 40 years with the Israelites in the wilderness before he died after crossing over the brook Zered in 2577 from creation. Joshua reigned 32 years. Now we go back here to 40 years in the wilderness when Moses was leading the disobedient children of Israel. And there's 38 more years, if you're working backwards now, to when Joshua was born. And Joshua lived 110 years, Joshua 24:29. So we have the 110 years laid out here when Joshua was born from 2499 from creation until he died in 2609 from creation. So now let's continue on. Whoops, there's 450 years of Judges that end in day 4. So from Joshua's death in 2609 from creation until Samuel's death in 3058, it's 450 years of Judges. So here we are now, there's 480 years of Judges until Solomon's temple construction began in 3098 from creation. Now, so that 480 years began in 2618 from creation, when the last of Joshua's peers died. Note there's 9 years difference between when Joshua died and the last of his peers died. The 450 years started with Joshua's death, and the 480 years and subsequent points we're going to show you in a moment, they began when the last of Joshua's peers died. So you have 9 years difference there. So here we go. We got 400 years until when Saul was anointed captain. He was anointed captain, and he reigned as captain for 2 years. And of course this gets into the fourth day. So he was made captain in 3019. So there's 400 years of Judges. And here we have 390 years of Judges till Samson's death in 3008 from creation. So we have Samuel's death here. We have the Solomonic temple construction began, and 400 years until Saul was anointed captain, and 390 years until Samson's death in 3008 from creation. And Joshua, the son of Nun, is an Ephrathite. Numbers 13, verse 8 and verse 16. 1 Chronicles 7:27. Joshua's 3 days. Joshua spoke of 3 days, 2578 to 5577 from creation. Amazing. There's 3,000 years from Moses' death, crossing the river Jordan, 2578 in the following year. In other words, Moses died at the end of the year, and they crossed the river Jordan in the beginning of the next year, and that's when Joshua's 3 days began. Joshua 1:11. That's 3,000 years to crossing the Atlantic, 5577 from creation. That's 1573 AD. So these are 1,000-year days, or 7 days plus an 8th day, or 3 days plus a half a day, and then there's 150 years tacked on the end. So within 3 days, Joshua said, quote, "Command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it." That's Joshua 1:11. Now, if you read Joshua carefully, you'll find out that there's a little mystery tied to this. So more than 3 days, Joshua's 2 spies visited Rahab's house the harlot's house, when the king of Jericho sent his men to catch the two spies. The spies then hid 3 days in the mountains before returning to Joshua. Joshua 2, verses 16 and 22. Israel then moved from Shittim to the Jordan. They didn't cross over yet, and lodged there 3 more days. Joshua 3, 1 and 2, and verse 5. Thus, the ancients did not cross over the Jordan within 3 days from when Joshua pronounced the initial 3 days in Joshua 1:11. So those 3 days here are 3,000 years that Joshua foretold. The Jordan River prefigures the Atlantic. Joshua 3:15 and chapter 4 verse 18. They speak of the Jordan River. Quote, "For Jordan overfloweth all his banks, all the time of harvest." Unquote. But the Jordan flows downhill from Galilee unto the Dead Sea. So the Jordan River overflowing all its banks represents the Atlantic Ocean, because the Jordan overflowing all its banks in the harvest, it can't be the Jordan River because it flows downhill. The Jordan River flows about 70 miles and it drops about 9 feet per mile, so there is no overflowing its banks. The Americas in the Old Testament, Joshua 1 verse 11, is obviously a parable prefiguring the early settlers of the Americas who crossed over the Atlantic within 3 millennial days. That's 2578 to 5577 from creation. That's 1573 AD. The blessings upon Western Europe and North America are described in the Bible. So we start with England and Western Europe on the east of the Atlantic, and USA and Canada on the west of the Atlantic. Thus, special blessings upon Manasseh began to evolve in the subsequent 300 years and beyond. That's from about 1700 AD unto the turning point in the spring of 1996 AD and beyond. The blessings upon the USA and Canada again, and England and Western Europe on the east of the Atlantic. These blessings all began with Abraham in the 3rd millennial day. And I'm important too. 3rd day from the 5 BC birth of Jesus says, I'm important too. So we're living in that 3rd day there. So the 3rd millennial day from creation prefigures the 3rd millennial day from 5 BC. Blessings abound for Abraham's seed, and blessings abound for firstfruits. They are materializing today. The ancient prefigures the modern. Blessings upon Abraham's seed, again, prefigure blessings upon the firstfruits. The ancient blessings on day 3, 2001 to 3000 from creation, prepared the way for modern prophecy coming true. Okay, here we go. Manasseh's inheritance is on both sides of the Jordan River, circa 2578 from creation. Ephraim's inheritance is south of Manasseh's western portion. So where those red arrows are, you see Manasseh's inheritance, one a little bit to the north on the east of the Jordan, and Manasseh a big portion to the west of the Jordan River. And the Jordan River prefigures the Atlantic Ocean. And note carefully now that Ephraim is south of Manasseh's western holdings. This map, about 2578 from creation, is courtesy of Bible-history.com. So the early Israelites in the land of Canaan. So let's see what it looks like today. The western portion here looks like today. So here we have Manasseh's Western Inheritance, Canada and the USA. And we have Ephraim's inheritance plus cities of Manasseh, Joshua 16:9 and 17:9. Oh, Ephraim was set before Manasseh. Expect blessings upon Ephraim to be much more greater than those upon Manasseh by a factor of 10. So the Americas, the land of Shinar, the land between the waters, the Atlantic and the Pacific. Now note that South America has 13 divisions, representing the 13 tribes. Blessings upon Joseph prefigure modern-day events. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. So Ephraim is going to be beyond Manasseh by a factor of 10. Deuteronomy 33:17, 33 verse 1, and 13 to 17 to be more specific. And those are Moses' blessings. Now below we have Jacob's blessings on Joseph. Genesis 49 verse 1 in the latter days, and verses 22 to 26 is blessings upon Joseph. Now this completes day 3 of the chronology of humanity.